Today on the hearing on Iran, we are focusing on two issues. One is the situations of persons belonging to minorities, and also here we will see what the President or how the President will change in future. And we will hear from our expert. We have invited the Secretary General of the Unrepresented People's Organization, Mr. Marino Bustachin. So welcome again, I have to say here in DRA. Our second focus today is on truth, memory and accountability regarding a particular dark moment in the Iranian past, the prison killings that occurred in 1988. Thousands of people have been killed. Mr. Bustachin, please.
Thank you. First of all, distinguished members of the European Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to start by thanking the European Parliament delegation for relations with Iran, as well the Human Rights Subcommittee, for inviting UNPO once again to speak before this committee. I hope to be able to provide you with an update on the situation of human rights and minorities in Iran. Today, I would specifically like to raise the issue of the plight of minority groups in Iran, where minorities account for a majority of the population of the country. As UNPO, we represent the Baloch in the southeast, the Ahwazi Arabs in the southwest, and the Iranian Kurds in southern Azerbaijan in the northwest. Since the election of President Hassan Rouhani in June this year, there have been hopes for a significant shift in the Iranian political landscape. For instance, during the election campaign, Rouhani pledged to issue a civil rights charter, which calls for a greater freedom for minorities and opposition parties, in addition to equalities for all citizens without discrimination based on race, religion and sex. However, UNPO remain wary of such hopes. All challenges that Iran faces today, including assaults against the rights of unrepresented nations, will remain unresolved, not least because it is Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran, who has the ultimate decision power on key domestic and international issues. In fact, after the fake election, considering the basic standard democratic rules that doesn't need an alibi by the European Union or the European Parliament to help them in this kind of scenario. The power is still in the hands of the guardian of the revolution and Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, and not in the hands of Mr. Rouhani. I'm happy on the last declaration, as has been told us by Madam Lochbihler previously, but the situation is still very serious. A systematic assimilation policy from Tehran threatens the continuation of the languages and customs of minority groups of the country. While it is unclear if Farsi is indeed spoken by a small majority of the country, or even less than this, Farsi is the official national language. It is forbidden to use other languages in formal or public place or as a language of instruction. The regime prevents any public mention of the Arabs' minority population and has consequently imposed silence and new blockade in the national and international media against the existence of Arabs in Iran. Students belonging to this minority group have a dropout rate of 70% because they find it is hard to keep up in classes held in their second language. In Iran, in Iranian Kurdistan, all newspapers, magazines and radio broadcasts in Kurdish have been banned. This linguistic discrimination means that local history, oral tradition and writing system might be lost within generations. The rate of unemployment among minorities is high, especially considering that the region they inhabit are rich in natural resources. Al-Ahwazi boasts one of the richest oil fields in Iran. West Baluchistan is rich in gas and oil, and Iranian Kurdistan provides a large part of Iran with water. The local population in each of these regions, however, do not benefit from the highly profitable extraction of those resources. Often minority groups in Iran have become victims of ecological and social disaster left in the wake of careless oil mining and other industrial and hydroelectric projects, a situation exacerbated by the Iranian government's increasing confiscation of land and property. Another reason for the high level of unemployment reported among minority groups is the use of an ideological selection test for jobs in government and sometimes in private sector. These tests require candidates to pledge allegiance to Shia Islam, which effectively exclude the majority of Baluch, Turkmen and Kurds who are Sunni Muslims. This year's elections were marked by a severe crackdown of activists, especially those representing minorities prior to the poll. This lack of representation in governments means that minorities have very little influence as to the decisions which affect them. I would also like to draw your attention to the drying up of the lake Urmia, which is extremely worrying. Located in the Iranian province of East and West Azerbaijan, the drying up of the lake continues to pose grave problems for the surrounding population, estimated at 76 million people. The lake has lost 70% of its water mass, leaving salt instead, in large part because of the Iranian government's mismanagement of dam construction on rivers feeding into the lake. Long-term environmental consequences such as severe salt storms, the collapse of the local ecosystem and alteration of the climate have begun to appear. The most acute concern facing all minority groups in Iran are arbitrary arrest, imprisonment and the death sentences. The judicial system in Iran is notoriously unjust and unreliable, with a much higher rate of persecution towards minorities. Suspects are not allowed to meet with lawyers until preliminary investigation, which means they don't receive any legal assistance during the interrogation period. There are reports of torture being used to extract false confessions, which are then recorded and televised by the friends suspected as a terrorist. Human rights lawyers who speak out against this practice are in danger of being stripped of their license and arrested. Some have been sentenced to prison for up to 18 years. Firstly, Mohammed Sadiq Abouvan is a journalist from Iranian Kurdistan who was named International Journalist of the Year at the 2009 British Press Awards. Unfortunately, he was unable to attend the ceremony to receive his prize because he was serving 10 years prison sentence for his establishment of the Human Rights Organization for Kurdistan in 2007. Even though he is gravely ill, has been on 3 hunger strikes to protest the Iranian government refusal to grant him permission to visit his family. Secondly, 5 southern Azerbaijani politicians from northwestern Iran who established a political party, the new Southern Azerbaijan National Awakening Movement Party, Yeni Gamoh, advocating for identity rights, were sentenced to 9 years in prison in May 2013 on the charge of forming an illegal group of distributing anti-government propaganda. Families of the prisoners have been confirmed that 5 activists were in solitary confinement and that they were tortured physically and mentally by the Iranian intelligence office before being sent to prison in March. They were only permitted to see a lawyer almost 5 months after their detention and just 1 week before the court hearing. In an attempt to plead their case internationally, the 5 southern Azerbaijani prisoners started a hunger strike in July and were reportedly transported to a prison in Tehran on the 8th day of the strike. Minority rights in Iran are not only being severely violated, but ignored altogether. It is extremely unfortunate that I had to make exactly the same statement in my speech last year. The human rights situation in Iran is particularly grave and requires increased and continued attention on the part of the European Union and other relevant international bodies. The latest UN resolution on human rights in Iran denouncing persecution against Arabs, Azeris, Baluchis and Kurds, as well as a secret group of execution of the Ahwazi Arab minority, is a welcome step, but further action is urgently needed. I thank you.
Brought also in future or now to the in front of a court who can deal with this, being it in the Iran himself, or if not, then also on the international level. And for sure, such a brutal time against people who are citizens, but also those who stood for a political different Iran, will always be in the history of the country. And without reflecting on this in a proper way, now and in future, it will be very difficult for the Iranian society to live together. So now I think before I give the floor to the EIS, I would also like to open the floor to members from the Iran delegation, but also from DROA, for comments or questions if you have. Mr. Thalato.
Intanto, Presidente, io la ringrazio per aver dato l'opportunità di un incontro con la partecipazione della delegazione per i rapporti con il Parlamento iraniano. Come lei saprà, perché è apparso pubblicamente, sono molto polemico con la mia delegazione. Una delegazione che ormai da un paio di anni vive solo nella prospettiva di fare questo viaggio dei delegati parlamentari europei a Teheran, dimenticando e sottovalutando le condizioni che noi ogni volta abbiamo messo per poter effettuare il viaggio stesso, per non consentire al governo iraniano di dimostrare un'apertura internazionale con la nostra presenza senza pagare alcun prezzo di contestazioni da parte nostra o di critiche rispetto al loro regime, cercando di incontrare giovani dell'università, di visitare alcune carceri e di poter incontrare quella che sembra essere un'opposizione permanente nel territorio iraniano. Agli amici che ricordavano il loro passato anti-Shah di Persia, allora intanto la storia ci insegna che gli autori delle rivoluzioni sono le prime vittime del governo che loro stesso costituiscono. Basterebbe pensare all'esperienza degli SA con Hitler per capire come funziona ogni rivoluzione. E poi vorrei raccontare un aneddoto della storia antica romana del I secolo a.C. Una città della Sicilia decide di uccidere il proprio tiranno perché non ne potevano più. Si riuniscono i delegati di ogni quartiere e danno il loro consenso, tranne uno che dice: c'è una vecchietta di 70 anni che non desidera dare il consenso all'uccisione del tiranno. Dice: ma come mai? Non lo so. Dove? Lei è sempre al tempio di Zeus a pregare. Si recano, incontrano questa donna, le dicono: ma tu perché non vuoi uccidere, non dai il tuo consenso a uccidere questo tiranno che ormai non ci fa più vivere? Dice: ma guardate, io per la mia età ho conosciuto il primo tiranno, persona meravigliosa, poi ho conosciuto il secondo, già meno meravigliosa, conosco questo che è veramente terribile, ho paura del quarto che possa arrivare.
I w niektórych komentarzach słyszałem takie stwierdzenie przed tą sesją, że jak gdyby powstała taka roanimania, czyli coś, co wywołało bardzo żywe zainteresowanie obecnością obecnego prezydenta Iranu na tej sesji. Zresztą te sesje mają do siebie to, że tam jest szereg takich bilateralnych kontaktów.
Been following, of course, the internal situation, the human rights situation in this country. Of course, you are totally aware that Iran is has been and is one of the worst human rights offenders in the world, and has kept us very busy. Of course, we have consistently followed and announced in statements. Our first concern is the very wide use of the death penalty. Until the 25th of September of this year, there are already 310 confirmed executions. Of course, this is a matter of huge concern for us. Then, of course, as we heard today, there are severe violations of the minority rights in Iran, discriminations against women, severe limitations to the freedom of expression, of assembly,